everybody, we're here at PAX East 2011 with Daniel Erickson on the Old Republic, who agreed to stand, who agreed to stand in front of the camera for a few minutes and answer some of our questions. So appreciate the time, Daniel.
Absolutely.
Would you mind, I know most people watching this probably know, just would you mind telling us a little bit about your role on the Old Republic development team?
Sure, I'm the writing director for BioWare Austin, and on the Old Republic I work as the lead writer.
Okay, great. What about, can you say a few things about what you're showing sort of new here at PAX this year? Or at PAX
yeah,
East?
absolutely. So the big thing is we've got a fully playable Flashpoint. We're bringing people in 4 at a time, lining them up. One of the things we kept getting again and again and again was, oh, you know, we're just seeing the beginning worlds, we're just seeing the stuff, you know, it's not an MMO, where's the whole thing, like how do we get the multiplayer? So I said, okay, no gloves, no restrictions, we're not going to do it like a media day, we're not going to buff up the characters. You're level 32, here's all your powers. We don't send people in blind. They get to pick their class, they get a little review, they sit down, they get a briefing, says here's your main rotations, here's what you do. We send them in, try to segment, and you know what, some people have won. We've now, last I heard, out of hundreds of people have gone through, we had 4 teams that actually did manage to...
Really, just 4, so it's not a cakewalk.
No, no. So it's hundreds and 4 right now.
Wow,
so.
Very impressive. So they got the prize. They got the vaunted prize.
They did get the vaunted prize.
That's great. Well, that's very exciting. I haven't had a chance to get my hands on it yet, but that'll be tomorrow. So, all right. So just a couple questions about gameplay. Trying to spread it around a little bit and figure out some things that we can ask that you can talk about instead of trying for stuff we know we can't. It's been explained in group content. You know, your character will get morality points. I don't think they've been talked about one way or another, but based on your decision, not the outcome. So what happens, are there scenarios where if your decision was to save the captain, but the group chooses to kill him, you get your morality points your way.
Your light side points.
Yeah, but what about later? What about later? Would that character ever come back?
No, he's dead. He's dead.
So does that affect my choice that I made in my story down the road? Like, would there ever be an intersection, a reason that he should have come back if he was alive?
Yeah, oh yeah. Not as much as we originally planned. So one of the things we learned early was the original plan was flashpoints were not supposed to be replayable. They were going to be a story thing, so we were going to link a bunch of other things into them. Everybody hated it. Internal testers hated it, external testers hated it. The flashpoints are huge, they're beautiful, they're really, really expensive and well scripted, they're great pieces. People want to show them to their friends, they want to run them again, they want to get all the cool stuff, they want to do the optional content they didn't do, they want to see the other line. So we said, okay, because this is the point of the project. It's what James always says, okay, at this point of the project, nobody cares what you think, we only care what the players think. So there went, you know, as a story guy, obviously, like, wait, but you can't replay.
Right.
No, yes, you can.
Right.
So you're going to replay the flashpoints. So there are still a couple hooks out there that we use, but mainly we keep the flashpoints pretty isolated to themselves.
Gotcha. Great. So they're obviously story-driven, but they themselves can be...
But they're pretty self-contained. It's sort of a little story off to the side.
Gotcha. Great. Well, that's cool. Well, that's good. So that should alleviate any fears about, you know, because the morality points, the light side, dark side were one thing, but then what really happens to your character?
Absolutely. You don't want to be... You don't want to be afraid to group with different people because they might make different choices.
Yeah, you don't want to say looking for the guy that didn't kill so-and-so on Tatooine.
Absolutely.
You know, I need that kind of stuff. Well, cool. All right, so obviously a ton of time and effort has been put into the front end of the player's game, the questing, the levels, the level up game, the story. I know you're not talking about endgame in any specific way, but is there anything you can say about, you know, once players sort of get there, and we don't know yet how fast that'll happen. You know, just by other MMOs, you're going to have players that won't stop till they do. You know, are they going to have things to keep progressing right when the game launches in that area?
Right when the game launches.
Yeah.
And how much of it's going to be there? Like, you know, you're going to have, I guess what we're kind of saying is, we're going to have some of everything. Yeah. How much of everything is really going to depend on how good it is, testing. One of the big problems with the end game is the same thing with PvP. If you're going to do them right, your paper design means nothing. Yeah. You don't know what's fun in your game. You don't know what works. You don't know what your tech actually supports. All of that dynamic work has to come once you start player testing and all your systems are in place. Yeah. You can't do a raid until you absolutely have flashpoints down. You can't.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about that before, how knowing, you know, what is fun is what's going to dictate what you do, right? You know,
well, and knowing what's possible with your system, right? You need to know how your classes interact. Yeah. You need to know exactly how what you can support and what your bad guys can do, because raids are obviously very intricate.
Yeah, sure. Another topic, and I apologize because these questions have probably been asked by the fan sites 90 times already today. But so right now there I wouldn't call it confusion, but some wondering going on about the class roles.
Okay.
In the past we've talked about. I think I talked to Blaine at PAX or last time, and so the answers have been different in terms of what are the advanced classes designed to do? Are they designed to be combat roles? And now we're seeing that there's possibly other roles included with each advanced class. There's a lot of talk about that on forums, as you're probably aware.
Yeah, absolutely. So the advanced classes, so every class, really, the birth of the advanced classes was we had an idea of how many classes we'd have to do to make an MMO feel right. But no possible way on the earth where we're going to be able to write that many stories.
Right.
We're already the biggest game ever from a story perspective.
Yep.
Right? We've got dozens and dozens, 50, 60 man years of writing content in there.
Yeah.
Not possible. So we split it. Now, but the thing is, inside each one of those, we treated them like a full class. And in a full class, in an MMO, you always have options.
Yep.
So within that one, you can play a kind of healer.
Yeah.
You can play I'm pretty tanky, but I can still bust out my DPS. And then you can adjust all of that from your companion characters. The big one I would say is don't stress about it.
Yeah.
It's all going to change.
Yeah.
I don't think anything we're seeing today is going to launch that way.
Right.
There is nothing as important as combat balance. There is nothing as important as getting the classes right. And there's nothing that teaches it to you except your player base coming in, kicking the crap out of everything you thought was right, and showing that you have to redo everything.
Yeah. I think a lot of players are going to be glad to hear that balance quote there because, it's ultimately a game, so things...
Absolutely.
Most of the fear about the advanced class or respecking or this and that come from, well, what if my class gets nerfed, or what if I don't want to do this or that,
and
so
what
don't
I'll
worry
say
about
is, you always have to think, it's James Olin's game, right? It always has been. He's the Baldur's Gate guy, he's the Dragon Age guy, he's the Neverwinter Nights, Knights of the Old Republic. His whole thing is the back half of the game is all polish, period. Yeah. We have to get done with it, and then we just polish. And what he says is, at that point, and I said before, nobody cares what you think.
Right.
Only when he's talking to the designers, right?
Yeah.
Senior designers, take off your fetish caps, take off everything that you want to do. It's all now about how the community responds when they play it.
Yeah, wow.
Right? And not just what people say, because some very small groups can be the loudest.
Yeah.
But we have metrics on it all.
Yeah.
We can see who's dying. We can see who's overpowering you. We can see where people are stopped playing the classes.
Yeah.
Right? We know what the soft spots are. And everything from now on until launch is to fix, and probably after launch, right, is to make that great.
Yeah, well, that's great. I know a lot of players are going to be happy to hear that because that's a very important thing in an MMO, and it's bandied about in every format you can think of, question-wise on the forum.
Of course.
So glad to hear that. Let's see here. So just to dovetail on that a little bit, will every class be have multiple potential combat roles, or will there be such a thing as a pure class?
There are some that are a little closer in the advanced classes, but no single class has a pure combat role.
Right. And especially, like you said, when you start to combine with companion character options, it kind of...
Absolutely. I have decided to play right now. Right now I'm heavy duty into the Inquisitor. I am playing the squishiest assassin ever. I have avoided anything that gets me anything that looks like defense. I am just DPS to death.
Interesting.
And Kem is doing a really good job tanking for me.
Yeah.
I've got my Dashad with me, and he's got enough abilities now and has been beefed up enough that he actually does play a good tank.
Oh, that's great. So you go out there, you're questing whatever, he does a lot of the dirty work, and you do the damage.
And I do the ganking, yes.
Yeah, nice. Well,
I say, look at my giant Dashad, and then they do it, and then I stab them in the head.
Right. All right, here's one that is a question I had, and I don't know if anybody read it. I wrote up a piece about Terrell 5 when it was announced, get my head around the idea that this is from an MMO old guy purist perspective. It's a place you go that doesn't really exist in the game world, right?
Well, it exists as much as anything else exists in the world. I mean, if we want to get philosophical about it.
Yeah, but you can't go to Terrell 5, another time, right?
Correct.
So that was it. So the question is, and that's fine. It's a great. Obviously, it's awesome the feeling of just watching it out here, seeing how you enter, how your ship lands, and you go forward. So it's great thing. But what was the idea behind doing it that way, other than obviously Monumental probably mounts work to create a planet for that, but I guess the thought I was having is...
Why wouldn't we put it on a planet we already had?
Right.
Because Star Wars is about exploration, right? If we were doing a classic fantasy game, we would have done exactly that. We would have picked an area, we would have said, let's do a piece for this. But one of the things we would have loved to have put every planet in the universe in there, right? We have a lot of planets in the game, but Star Wars is about the size of the galaxy, seeing new things, seeing new creatures, seeing new places. So whenever we can, when we bust out a flashpoint, we're going to try to give you something you haven't seen before. Even if that's just a feel of, hey, I'm going to go out here, you know, we've got quests that go out beyond the rim into the unexplored regions. We've got quests that go into places that don't, you know, that are almost mythical in nature. We've got a lot of crazy stuff out there because we want people to feel like, you know, if I've been on Tatooine for, you know, 10 hours and then I get a quest that's a flashpoint on Tatooine that's using all the Tatooine art.
Right. You might be ready for something else.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great idea. I had an issue with it at first. I'm like, well, why? If it's that important of a location, then put it, you know, on a planet that exists, or vice versa. If it's, you know.
Well, and the other thing though is what it's about, right? The plot for Tyrell 5 is about you trying to secretly get onto a planet that nobody's allowed to be on.
You can't just travel there as casually.
So a bunch of people wandering around over on the side are going to kind of kill your experience. And you're, you know, being Mr. Stealthy.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I mean, especially after seeing it in action. I mean,
imagine if they'd landed and been taken onto the Death Star, and then there were a ton of people dancing on the mailboxes. It wouldn't have had the same feel.
No, it wouldn't have. Yeah, and I can already say, you know, just the you know, some of the best experiences like that in other games have been, I think, when they started to introduce some story aspects and more of a progression to the experience instead of go in, kill that pile, that big guy. You know, now it's got, you're doing something along the way that feels a little bit more natural and experiential, I guess. So okay, well, cool. Speaking of interplanetary travel, can you talk about that at all? Like,
did you get to see the space demo?
No.
Did you see the planet, the galaxy map?
No.
Because it's rad.
Is it?
You should have come.
I know, I was standing here. But yeah.
So we showed the galaxy map today for the first time.
Oh, great.
It is, we definitely have heard the words Mass Effect-esque, you know. It is a full interactive galaxy map. You can go and see where all the stuff is in relation to each other. You can actually see sort of a preview of where you're going. You actually see the ship fly in there. You come into the planet. You see
great.
Stuff
So that whole thing was,
yeah.
Okay, great. There goes that question. But that's awesome to hear because, you know, part of the immersion, you know, when you can't, you're not going to literally travel from planet to planet. You want to feel like you are.
And we do a huge amount to do that.
Yeah, well, that's great. Is there? Well, I guess I'll see it in the video. Is there physical time? Is physical time to travel? No, is there physical time associated? And does it differ based on any reasons?
This was another one that, like, I'm a role-playing guy. I'm like, I wanted a counter, and you're like, all right, now you're traveling to Hoth.
Not fun.
Yeah, no. That died very early in testing.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So, just a couple more here. I think a lot of Star Wars fans aren't looking just for a great game, but they're looking for a place to spend time experiencing the universe. Do you think the Old Republic will deliver on that promise? Beyond being a great game, will it be a place Star Wars fans can spend time and feel like they're there?
I sure hope so. We go into so much detail. Like, we have so much idea of the texture, of the feel. One of the things that I wanted to do very differently on this, and the reason that as the lead designer I'm also the lead liaison with art, is, like, I know why the structures on Droman Koth look like that. We know when Koth City was destroyed and rebuilt. We know why the art looks like that on Korriban. We know what everything is coming from. We know how Voss developed, and we try to put a lot of that in game, but also a lot of it is just out there to explore, right? There's stuff when you are going around and, you know, if you want to be the guy who gets all the codex entries and learns all the backstory, we found a place to put a whole bunch of that 1,000 pages of stuff. But it really does feel like, and we've really worked to make sure every place has good social spaces and good places for people to hang out, see what they're doing. Really, when the crew skills stuff comes in, it is amazing to see how fast that improved all the social space stuff.
Really?
Yeah, because, I mean, as soon as you're like, I need some stuff, and I can build some stuff, and, you know.
That's it. Yeah, I can't wait to see that all come together and try that out. You know, the crew skills system, I think, is just awesome. You know, not just from the fact that it takes some of the mundane tasks out, but just the concept around offline skills or production at least. You know.
Well, and just doing it, like, I always have it open in the background while I'm doing something else. Like, if I'm working, I just have my crew going. And the one that the most recent sort of change that we had to do to this stuff to make with the code that made a huge was just you used to only be able to do it with your guys who weren't with you.
Okay.
And now we finally got it online where, you know, they got your active companion can go, which is great because I'm like, as soon as I say, hey, we're going to run this quest, and you say, I'm headed to the bathroom, I turn to Kem and I'm like, hey, Kem, go run a mission.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
or as soon as I'm headed back to go shopping,
yeah.
right? If I know I don't need him for a little bit, he's running missions, or he can go sell my junk.
Yeah.
I can just send him off to send all my gray stuff. Like,
yeah. Wow, that's cool. That's I can't wait. Is there any other? Again, not to make you reveal anything. Does that apply in any other aspects of the game? Is there, potential offline or extending the game beyond playing it online? Other skill development in any way, or any other?
There are no plans right now for like sort of an Eve style. I'm gonna build my character online.
Yeah.
For us, it's all about keeping it contextual.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for people who are not you to do things while you're not there.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a lot of sense for us for you to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I totally agree with that, by the way. If anybody I thought it's always weird to me about Eve, but great game otherwise. What's one thing you can talk about? You think that, again, not to reveal anything, what would you say one thing you'd say that fans aren't expecting? Like, what are they going to get out of this? That Steven, for example, said he says, I know we talk about a lot about the story. Once you sit in front of it and you hear the voiceovers and you go through that, he goes, it doesn't do it justice to you. So people aren't probably expecting that to be.
That's the one we get constantly from the playtesting. Is we get all the guys who are like, I'm just going to skip the story. I'm going to do it. Yeah. And then we get they're like, no, I didn't do that. Like they try and they fail. I think the thing that people are actually going to be surprised by, just because it's hard to show it off, and that's what we're showing now, is how fun the multiplayer is. How fun group dynamics are. How fun it is to roll out with you and your friends and your stuff. Whether it's a couple guys and just their companions, or you've got the full party and you're going. It's a really good experience. I group because I like the dynamic. You've seen how dynamic the combat is.
Yeah.
So I love to be with a trooper or something and have him blowing people through the air while I'm doing stuff. Like, I just like to have combat going around me, and it makes me more likely to group.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's the kind of thing that everybody's wanting to hear. And certainly the people that are going to come away playing it are going to know that. So other than that, I mean, that's really all. I don't want to take up all your time. Last question. Is the game still on track for release this year?
Absolutely. So 2011 is all we're saying, right. but it is absolutely there.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you, Daniel, as always. We appreciate it. Have a good rest of the show, and we'll see more of you soon, right?
Beat it.
We'll do it tomorrow. You heard it. We're going to do it.